showing you all how to make a faun. See you then. Hi guys, I'm Carly from Carly's Creative Clay. Welcome. I hope you've had a good week. Good couple of weeks. I've been off a few of them. I always say this, I've got a whole heap of health issues, as does my husband. So we're never going to end up being YouTube, what's the one where they start paying you money? Affiliates?
Yes.
Yeah, we're never gonna be doing that because you gotta commit to so many hours every week, and we get ill some weeks, so such is. But we do try and come and be here as often as our health permits. So sorry that we've had a few weeks off, and we probably will have a few weeks off again in the future. It's life. Gonna show you the finished result of the last project we did. Now, anyone who followed along with this will see that there have been some changes made. So, bit of an explanation as to that. Right. Firstly, the base is wider, and secondly, the bottom of the tree trunk is thicker. What I found once it came out of the oven was that it wasn't very stable, that it was prone to tip a bit, which was because the base was too small. So I literally mixed up some more of the green swirly clay, secured it on properly, smudged it in on the top side and smudged it in on the bottom, although you can still kind of see a ring, but it's properly smooth. This is what I'm talking about when I say it's very hard to make the same pattern clay twice. You get near it, but it's never exactly the same. So it's a bit more noticeable on the underside, but on the top side I made sure I brought the new clay quite far up so it really doesn't show. And where the trunk was on the thinner side, and I used quite small wire really for the structural needs that we were putting on it, the tree was prone to moving, like swaying, and that is okay because polymer clay is very flexible when you have it quite thin. There are some you can almost bend straight over, but they're like jewellery pendants, very thin veneers, that sort of thing. I decided I wanted this more rigid because I didn't want to risk cracking. So again, I used the same colour clays and techniques as I did on the streams and built the back of it up so that it's now a lot more rigid and solid. But did nothing to the koala or the leaves. In the oven it has tilted slightly further back. I don't want to risk straightening it because I don't want it to break, and I'm actually I like it. I think it looks more like what it would be with a big koala in a tree. It would lean slightly. So overall, I know I say I try not to change anything off of stream, but I had to because I didn't want to leave it a week where it weren't structurally properly safe. But there we are, that's that project finished. It's still dropping little bits. It will do for a few days of handling, and then all the little bits that are loose will be off it and it'll be fine. It wouldn't do that so much if I'd varnished it, but I actually like the matte look. The other thing I made off of camera was a mother unicorn and her baby, and I want to show this to you. It's the first horse I've done sat down. This was for a competition for the British Polymer Clay Guild. It didn't win, but I still really like it. Yeah, so I wanted to show you all what I'd done. So there we are. When I finally get my Etsy shop opened, once this horrible plague has finished, all these things will end up in my shop.
Fairy Hedgehog says, I love those.
Thank you, Fairy Hedgehog. Right. At some wins I am going to do a tutorial where I show you how to do a horse sitting down in that position, because they actually have really an awkward position when you look at it properly. And I'll go through that in another tutorial, don't worry. But this time we're going to do fawns. So, a fawn. This is the overview picture of it. It's got a couple of names. The top two there would be classed as a goat man. They're a cryptid that's popping up in America relatively recently, although there have been dotted reports. And if you see, they got far more of a goatish face, as well as the standard goat legs, but human torso. The rest are all counted as fawns. That's Faun, if my accent is too strong. Now, you do get in Greek myth satyrs or satyrs. We're not going there, because when you look into it, they're the X-rated version of fawns. They're fertility gods, and it gets, yeah. So don't Google that with your kids around. That's all I'm going to say. Sorry, drinking coffee. Right, so we're going to focus on the fawn. So they have had some celebrities in there. It is an X-rated fawn. They've had some celebrities like Mr. Tumnus, and was it Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream was a fawn? Wind in the Willows had one. I can't remember the name of that. I'm sure Fairy Hedgehog will be able to tell us his name. But they do show up in myth a lot. I would say anywhere that's actually got goats as a predominant livestock, the god Pan, that was it. They tend to have a goat man type myth going on. So, if you see the leg structure, that very sharp sort of Z shape going on, you're going to need an armature if you're going to make this from clay. An armature is a skeleton or any sort of structure that helps create stability in your sculpture. You'll find when you bake your polymer clay, just before it does the reaction to go really hard, hi hearty life, it goes softer than even the softness of the clay, and it's prone to falling apart at that point. As I showed you with the tree, it can change if the weighting's not right. So I'm going to talk you through the armature that I made for our fawn. Right, now I made it off camera because it's lots of bits of wire flying around and I didn't want to damage my camera with it, and also it's hard to film. So I'm going to talk you through it. This is where we're at. Now what you're going to need is a couple of different wires. This is a 20 gauge wire, which is what you're going to use for head, arm and body. We need a stronger set of legs because I said the weighting's a bit off. What I've used is a coat hanger. You know the metal coat hangers? They all have this sort of gold plastic covering. That is fine. You don't need to remove it. It goes through the oven okay. So be careful with it. It's if I was to guess on a wire gauge, I'd say that's about a 10 gauge. The lower the gauge, the thicker the wire. And it really is quite difficult to bend in the right place. You're going to need some decently substantial pliers. So yeah, these are the measurements and how I did it. Oh, one last thing you're going to need. Metal epoxy putty. And I'll talk you through that quickly first. I love this stuff. It's not the cheapest thing in the universe, but you're not going to need a second mortgage for it, and you only use a little bit. What you get is a tube like this, and it really does feel like quite a stiff putty. Let me take the cap off because you don't want to leave it exposed to air too much. Actually, that side's been decapped. I'll show you that side. Can you see you've got a dark inner circle and a light silver outer circle? You cut a slice of the amount you want, and that's the two bonding the two elements that react to turn it into a full metal kind. It's almost like a weld. Use rubber gloves. You don't want this stuff stuck into your fingers once it turns. Keep kneading it until it's one solid colour, then you can use it. When you go to put it away, make sure you got the metal cap on one end and you twist the other end like that so it's not got air into it, because it dries it out and makes it harder to work with. Okay, so metal epoxy, and it literally works like you've done a weld with a welding torch. If you can see, really solid stuff. Now,
and it goes through the oven.
Yeah, it goes through the oven fine. It literally, you can use it on your plumbing work, or you can sand it down, but you're going to need an angle grinder because it is like a weld, because it is actually metal. Right, so my armature, the only problem I've got with it is there's a slight wiggle in that joint there because I didn't pack that in tight enough, but I think I'll be able to get it to hold once I put all the clay on it. So let's talk you through. I made the legs first. So there is long bit of wire. I first bent it down to make that straight line for the hip, and that's 2 centimeters either side, so 4 centimeters. Then you're going down the legs, which is 3 centimeters. Put a bend 90 degrees going back 1 centimeter, and then you're going back down as straight as you can for another 3 centimeters, and then you're going to just make a single stick. I know they look like they're rounded, they're not, just straight, for 2 centimeters. That's your legs. Now your knees are bending forward and the line goes back and then down. It's very easy to get mistaken and have them back to front. I assure you these feet were out that way at one point until I really looked at the picture and oops, and had to bend them back. So do make sure you got your knees doing the right zigzag. Okay, now at the bottom what I've got is some, I'd say that's about an 18 gauge. No, thinner. 20's that, so that'll be about a 22. And I've gone round like that and then twisted it around to bunch it, and then I've got metal epoxy and I have squidged it all in to hold it there. These are not feet. I'll show you why we got this going on when we get there, which is the first stage. What I did for the body, I've got quite a long bit of wire, or you can use 2 bits of wire if you haven't got them on a spool. You're gonna wind either you've got a very long bit and you're gonna loop it in half, so you then got 2 sticks and it's around the pelvis there, or you're just gonna get your 2 sticks and twist them together and then loop that around.
Frantel says, "Morning all, hope you feel better." I believe that's Liz on.
Thank you. I'm doing okay. I'm still giddy. I'm getting used to it. I'm having some days that are really bad and some days that are all right. So, but thanks for asking. 22 gauge wire, either 2 bits or 1 long bit folded in half with the half meeting at the bottom there. You're going to twist them up 5.5 centimeters, that, and you're just twisting it so you've now got a stick. Then you're going to split the two wires or two ends, go in two different directions. You're going to go from the middle on one side, tuck this one out of the way so that it's not poking you. You go in 2.5 centimeters, twisting it, because twisting the wire together gives you a much stronger piece. 2.5 centimeters, then you're going to bend it down, that's your shoulder. 3.5 centimeters for the top of the arm, and 2.5 centimeters for the rest of the arm. Do the same with the other stick. Then you'll find, because you've bent the stick in half, your points are now back at the middle. You're going to twist them together. You can wrap it under the armpits if you've got enough extra wire, but you twist them together and get it to the shoulders there. You're going 1.5 up for the neck. Now, I haven't given a measurement for the loop at the top. That is not the size of the head. All you need to do is find yourself a paintbrush, a chopstick, a tool, anything that's got a little round end. Put that through it, wrap the wire around, twist, take it out, and then the twisted end bit of wire, fold it back under. So this is just an anchor for the head to hold on to. If the anchor's too wide, then it will end up too close to the surface clay around the face and you don't have as much sculpting room. You want it little. So paintbrush, that'll do. Make sure you use your pliers and fold those spiky bits at the top like that down under into the centre of that loop. Less liable to stab yourself, and it secures it better and it won't stick out the top of your model. Right, so I then put more of that metal epoxy around that pelvis joint to help hold that. Then I've got tin foil wrapped up to that sort of thickness, about 3 or 4 layers, and then brought it round till I made a chest the size I really want, and covered that in masking tape. The reason for the foil is on very thick parts it's better to have foil in the centre than it is clay, because the clay, in order for it to turn into solid plastic, has to reach temperature, and that is less likely for the very centre to reach the highest temperature. So lots of technical bits there, lots of numbers. I'll hold this up to the camera. Can you make it so that the brightness shows that up?
Let me focus first.
Sorry, we're going to focus and...
No, it is just the brightness. Hold on.
Whoop, you almost had it.
Yes, you've got it now. I can see it on my screen.
You can see it fine? Yep. Right, screenshot that if you want the numbers. Okay? Now, we're going to talk through some clay mixes that I've made up for it. So put that to one side. The top half, the skin, this is what I made up. Now, you don't just want white and brown. It leaves this sort of sickly washed out look. I wanted a bit of a tan going on here, because, you know, outdoor animal. So I've gone white and magenta, which is a bright pink. You need orange if you're going for the whole white people skin tone. So that is white, magenta and orange. If you don't put orange in, it goes basically this. It is a pale pink, but it's not a skin tone.
I would never have guessed.
Yeah. So we got your white, magenta and orange mix. Then in order to get this nice tan colour, there is a little bit of brown, which you would expect, but I've also mixed in some gold, and if you can see, it just gives the skin tone a little bit more of a sheen. So think about women who put on bronzing powder. It's that kind of effect. Not enough for it to overpower, just enough for it to be a subtle, you look like you've got a healthy glow. Okay? That's how you get this mix going on. Play around, add too little, you can always add more. If you add too much, especially of the bright colours and dark colours, you then find you're mixing a huge batch just to get it back down to what you want. Which isn't a terrible thing, because you can store it to one side and use it for the next project where you need a tan person. Sorry, I'm going to be taking a whole lots of sips of drink here. Now, I'm mixed up for the legs. I have spared you all me doing my swirly clay again. If you want to see it, pretty much every other video has it in. You're literally doing strands of different colour, twisting them, folding them, twisting them on themselves till they form a big ball, rolling that ball out into a stick, doing it again twice over. Once you got that and the ball's all covered in lines, push it into a square form, cut the outside off, get the outside bits, flip them on themselves so the inside pattern's on the outside, re-stick it back on the ball, roll it into a ball so it's smooth again. You end up with that. There you go. That's about 20 minutes done in 30 seconds.
I might be able to cut together a quick version of that to go on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, we got to do a video where it's literally just me doing that. So that's it in browns. Now, the browns we got are chocolate brown, brown and orange mixed together, brown and yellow, brown and white, brown and black, gold, gold and black, gold and copper, copper, grey and Bordeaux. That's that mix. Okay. The base, I wanted something kind of fiery. So, but something that would kind of go in with these brown tones. So this is what I've mixed up for that. The base is yellow, orange, red, silver and black, which is one of my favourite mixes. James has galloped off, so I can't get him to focus it, but I will do at some wins when he's back. So there are my three main clays. What I think the best thing to do is to get started by making the base, so then when I fire it, it's not ceramics, when I bake it in the oven, I've got that as a good base to start with. I can hold that when I'm sculpting the rest. Stage 2 will be the skin tones clay, and it'll be the chest and head, and then I'll do the legs. Actually, I may leave the head until after the legs, but it'll certainly be the chest and arms up after I've done the base. Right, Jamie's back now. Can you focus so I can show that? That's the red, orange, silver, black and yellow. Okay? Right. Now, the reason why these aren't feet is because they're getting embedded in the middle of the base. This is so that we definitely have him very firmly secured and isn't going to tip over. Now how we do this is like so. You get your pattern clay and you chop it basically roughly in half using your tissue blade. Don't have to be exact about it. but I take about half off. And with that pattern clay, it goes all the way through, which is one of the joys of this. I love it. Now, greaseproof paper, we're going to put that down, put our pattern clay on. Remember, with your tissue blade, when you put it down, sharp side facing away from you. Now, how to get a perfectly round base. You do use your rolling pin, and you're going to roll towards you and do little turns of the paper. If you get really good at it, you can do it on one of those turntables, not an electric one that you manually spin, but I find it overshoots too much. I find I end up with less control than by just doing it on a plain surface like this. And as you can see, it's getting bigger and spreading out evenly rather than more to one side. Now, if you want to do a slight cheat on making this bigger quicker, once you've got a hockey puck going on, turn it over, lift it off. You need to drag your paper back like that, or you're liable to end up pulling clay off. You can stretch the clay with your fingers. So I'm going either side and just pulling, and again, little turns. And I find that can be easier on the arms than actually using a rolling pin. But it's pretty hard to get this to work when you've got a full ball, so you're going to need the rolling pin to get started with. Now, you do have the potential for clay to stick to an acrylic pin. By the way, what I'm doing here is just stretching the outsides so that it stays in shape. Now, put it back down, roll it out a bit more. I find clay sticks to your rolling pin when the clay is very thin. A thicker bit of clay, it should be fine to roll out. Right, with this, you want it the kind of width you want your finished statue. So that looks fine to me. Now, you may have noticed when you roll out, one surface gets very stretched. You get more of a oil slick kind of bigger lines, because the clay, what you're doing, the paper on the underside is holding that picture firm, and the clay is being stretched over the top like that. So you're going to have one side that is looking different to the other, and it's up to you which side you make the top and which side you make the bottom. I'm going to do it this way around. Now, we're going to embed these feet right into the centre there. Push them down. You can use your rolling pin for that, but you don't want to go through too deep through to the bottom, because what we're going to do is use this next. First off, let's flatten that out a bit. If you don't use paper, you'll see on a thick bit you can move it a bit, but if it's properly stuck and you don't want to risk pulling any clay off, use your tissue blade and pull it towards you like that, and that will release. So I'm gonna bring this out actually a lot thinner, because what we're going to do is put this over the top. We're not going as thin as the base clay, but we are going probably at least the thickness of your metal putty, if that makes sense. so it can fill in all the gaps. A bit more like so. Right, that'll do. Now I'm gonna cut this into some bits because I want to be able to fit it down that middle to cover that up. Still a bit too thick. I pinch it out, it's quicker. It seems like a faff to embed these bits in clay, but it really is worth it. You can just rip your clay as well, that's fine. But we're just gonna fill that in like so, and we'll roll out all those creases afterwards like that. And so what we're going to end up with a built up middle bit coming down to the thinner outside. I'm stumbling over my words today. It's a symptom called fogginess in CFS. It's one of the joys. Right, you can see I'm just patching it all in, and it looks a bit scruffy, but that's fine. We'll get rid of all that scruff with a rolling pin and with a palette knife. Also, your hands do a really good job of actually smoothing stuff in. I think it's one of the best tools we have. So I'm just making sure it's mostly covered like that. That'll do. There we go. Last little triangle up the top here like that. Right, so we're patched in. Now I've got it so the paper, its ends are facing up. There we go. Can't roll on me now. Right, I'm going to come in with my rolling pin and just start to get it a level height. Like so. You can cut it precisely, like make a second disc and cut just lines enough to fit the legs up, but that's precise work and I like doing things the hard and messy way, it would seem. Make sure you've really got that clay right up around that wire of the ankles. Okay, like so. We just smooth it all in using our hands, the rolling pin, and the other thing that can help is a palette knife. It does make kind of cracked effect, I will show you that, but that can be easier to get rid of with your hands than some of these bigger lines. You do tend to smudge the pattern a bit when you palette knife, so I use it sparingly, if that makes sense. Right, rolling it all in. I know it's leaning back at the moment. I'll stand him up properly afterwards, but here we go. I'm probably going to end up fiddling with this for ages because I like to get it perfect. The risk factor when you're doing this, the reason why I didn't use just one solid sheet over the top, is you don't want to trap air bubbles between the two layers. If you do that, you're gonna find that what was a very structurally stable base suddenly is prone to cracking and falling apart. So you really want to make sure, if you're going to use one sheet, you seal it in from one side and push the air out the other, if that makes sense. But I thought doing that I can show you how to make it very neat very quickly, but doing it this way I can show you that even the most scrappiest way of doing it, which was adding little bits, it's almost there now. Almost formed into one solid piece, and all I'm doing is using my fingers to push on it to smooth it out all those joins, like so. The good thing is the pattern can hide some of it. You shouldn't need to. You should just be able to spend a bit of time and get all those join lines out, like so. Now, I know the legs that we got at the bottom are already shorter than the top, but part of what we've got there, I'm going to take another drink. Don't know why my throat's so croaky nowadays, but it seems to be. Another thing I'm just living with. We've got to remember, we've got to have room to put hooves in on it. So that is leg and hoof room. There. I'm just coming in and gently smoothing out those join lines with my palette knife. If you put a lot of pressure, you smudge the design far more than if you're very gentle with it. So, a bit more over here. Right, anyway, you can see it's almost there. I'll do most of the rest of it off camera. Yeah? So, that's my base. Now, it would feel easier to do the legs and then the body and just work your way up. But if we can go back to the Faun pictures, look at the hairline between the stomach and legs. The hair sits on top of the stomach skin. So if we did the leg hair and then the stomach, it would look really odd. Does that make sense? Yeah? So this is why we're doing abdomen first. Now, wipe my hands. I do love a bit of kitchen roll. Now we are working in similar tones, so it's not so drastic, but hand cleanliness is definitely a useful thing. So, sorry about my voice has gone weird. Yeah, sorry about that. Right. First thing we're going to do is just about clay placement. You're not worried so much about the structural details. I'm not following my own rule there. Turn my blade away from me. Because a cut from a tissue blade is no joke. It's really not. It hurts like hell. You get a very long cut. Always be mindful of it. Right. I'm bringing my clay down to about a centimetre's thickness. I find that's where I'm most comfortable in working with my clay. The reason is when you get too thin, it flops around too much. Can you see this actually holds firm, so you can start to push it places without it all sort of drooping and bunching and causing a right mess. But you don't want to go so thick as to cause a long time baking. Now, first bit I'm going to do is, let's get this arm out the way. One of the reasons I used 20 wire was because it's easier just to move it around and change its position. First bit is going around the abdomen. Now, I want the join to be at the back or at the front. It's up to you, doesn't matter, but you don't want it down the side because you've got to then fight the arm to smooth it out. I'm making sure I pushed it firmly against that armature for the chest, that there's no air bubbles getting trapped before I do anything about rolling that side round. Okay? So air bubbles are not your friend. We are bringing that round like that and just securing it up over the shoulders a bit, like so. Now then we can push and bring out that join on the back with our thumb. I'm just literally smoothing it along like that. What I'm hoping for is as I push this clay into shape, it's going to start to go down there and underneath, which is good for me. Right, just starting to get the rough shape that I want for that chest. Any extra that I'm moving is going up to the shoulders and down to the hips, like that. That's a good start. So what you're looking for, let's show you. It's very much just a straight, almost tube looking bit of clay. Now, I am fed up that it's wobbling, so I'm going to put some more clay to secure it around the hips, and then I'll be able to build the brown up on top of that. So I don't want to go too high on the hips. So a bit underneath, like that, and just bring it round, smooth it in, make sure you're not trapping any air, like so. Hopefully this will help a bit. What will really help make this more stable is once we start getting those legs on, then it will really start to stop wobbling around this much. You can make it so that it's firm with the metal epoxy, but yeah, even mistakes are workable. This is what I'm showing.
I think of a way as well.
Right, I'm just starting to bring that point down of the abdomen, because here, let's show you on Action Man. I got an Action Man doll. There's the belly goes into a point there, and then the hips come over. Does that make sense? This is going to be our guide for the muscle groups. I got him from a charity shop. He has been a hard worker for me. Weirdly enough, I've had complaints that I keep him like that in his unders. I'm like, there is nothing, none of these bits are showing, and what I'm trying to get from him is his muscles so I can recreate them. So if I dressed him, what's the point? You know, how am I doing that then? So yeah, can't please everyone online, and some people believe that the naked form should be off limits to artists. They've not heard of the Renaissance or anything like that. But there we are. Yeah, Action Man is, I never knew he was such a controversial dude. Right. Now, we're going to look at this. There are less going on his back than there is on his front. So I think it's easier to sculpt the back first. And can you see, on an animal that stands upright like that, the spine line actually is an indent. Yeah? On an animal that is on all fours, like a cat or a dog, the spine actually sticks up as a bump. So, the first thing we're going to do, make sure that it's all smooth, and then we're going to get a ball tool. This is my pot of my favourite tools. One of, what are we, 10 pots of different tools? I know, I've got too many tools. We're going to hold him very gently on our hand. We're going to trace out that spine line. You want to be kind of straight. And it will help inform where we need to add clay to bring up the muscle group or shape what we've got here already. Whoop. I'll just show you in a second. Just defining it a bit more. There we go. See, we've got a spine line. Now, he's got a whole lot of bumpiness going on with his back that I tend to not get so involved in. But there is a bit of adding we can do. Let's put him up on the top. Right, we got these two big muscles along the side there. Don't ask me to name them, I'm not a doctor. I did learn most of it when I trained as a masseuse back when I was 16, but a whole lot of time has gone since then. Now, you can use, let's see, where is it? Mini desktop scales to make sure that all your clay is equal weight, so you've got the same size bits going on both sides, or you can eyeball it. So the first thing I'm going to do is form these into balls. Like so. Let's put this out the way a bit more, give myself some working room. I know there's a lot of different clay surfaces touted as the best clay surface, and I've tried most of them. Smooth glass is my thing. These are kitchen chopping boards that I painted the underside white. I did have ones that were a lot more patterned if you look in my early videos, but my lovely dad said there is no way people can follow what you're doing when there's all that madness going on in the background, and got me these, but we couldn't find any that were plain white, so bit of paint on the underside, it does a brilliant job. Right, let's check, how big are we talking here? Still a bit big actually. I've kind of overestimated on my clay balls. Just getting over the top of it and dividing it in half. I said half. Come on, a bit of you over here. Right. That looks more like it. Right. I will use you in future stuffs. So, we're going to form them into kind of wide teardrops. So, I'm just bringing the bottom into a point before I push them down flat like so. See? And make sure you replicate on the other side. It's easier to do them both when they're next to each other and then put them on. So the teardrop is halfway up the back, about there, going round like that. A bit more of a point down there. There we go. Now, I know it looks kind of weird at the moment. Looks like weird boobs, but we're going to smooth them in a minute. Let's get my bigger ball tool. Now, I'm going to hold this up on its side. Just going to smooth in those join lines so that it's one solid piece of clay. Like so. Now I'm rushing a bit. You're going to want to take your time and do this so that it's absolutely smooth. But let's get my next size down. I find, especially with metal tools, and I've not found any tools that actually don't do this, you can get some cracking when you're smoothing. If you go down to the next size of ball, you'll find that that will smooth out the cracks. Sorry, let's move a bit forward like so. Now I can already see this has dust on it. Don't worry, at the end I'm going to wash it down in isopropyl alcohol. That is 90% proof, and that will lift all the dust off, because what it does is it melts the top layer of the clay and lets you just literally wipe it off. So these are a bit too protruding. I know this. I haven't finished yet, because you're going to move the clay around so it looks better than this in the memento. If you try and do that before you blend it in the edges, you're going to have a real trouble blending in the edges, and sometimes the clay can slip, which can be really annoying. Right, can you see the little cracks? Whoop. Do you see what I mean? Little cracks where you're smoothing down. So you just go down to the next ball tool size and that will smooth in those cracks. Some people say using rubber tip tools helps. I found rubber tip tools made it a million times worse. Right, once you've got that joint in, we're then gonna push that bit of clay so that it's a bit wider, a bit flatter. Fill in some of these troughs and make it look more like what we want. So let me just do so and I'll show you what I mean. Pull it out. Oop. Where it could show off every bit of smoothing that I didn't do properly there. Sorry guys. This is not a quick process, but it is quite effective. Right, can you see they're far more looking like a muscle group now. Overshot the spine. Let's bring that back in there. At the moment it looks like you've got a spinal condition. Glitter? How have I ended up with glitter on it? That stuff gets everywhere. another YouTube channel I watch calls it the herpes of craft materials, because once it's in around, it's very hard to get rid of, and it's blooming annoying. Right, so we've got those muscle groups in. Now we're going to need to do the scapula, which is that muscle there. So what I'm going to do is use this small ball, bring that in half and then in half again, because the scapulas, they are pronounced, but they're not as big as that back muscle we just done. Now, that little semicircle teardroppy type shape actually works well for a scapula, because that really is the shape it's at. You just want to tap down those points a little and then flatten it out to that shape. Yeah, like that. 2 of those. And as far as I'm concerned, the scapula is a really badly designed area of the human body.
Says, well, fawns are magic, aren't
they?
Well, Faun, Arty Life says, well, fawns are magic,
yes,
aren't they?
They are. But yeah, scapula, badly designed bit of the body. It's a plate. If you look, it's just sort of on your back where your shoulder is, and what happens is a lot of your tendons that control your shoulder go through your scapula, and then like a hole in the back of that bone, and they twist, which is lunacy to twist a load of tendons on themselves like that. But there we are. So
Arty Life says, and everything magic has glitter.
Yeah, you're true. That's true. Right, so what you're doing, can you see? That's where you're placing it. So the main diagonal line, that long bit, goes across under the shoulder blades, and the round bit goes down towards the back, like so. And again, your back's moving in again. If you haven't got a ball tool, you can make your own ball tools using cocktail stick with a bit of polymer clay. Just smudge it on, smooth out that top ball bit. See? Let's put my finger behind it and show you. And then bake it, and you've got your own ball tool, if you don't want to spend the money. Yeah. So it is kind of amazing how many cultures have a human goat figure in its myths when they don't tend to have other farm animals. I mean, there aren't many human bulls. I mean, the Minotaur did get created, but he's not everywhere. And other things, that you don't see human chickens or any of the bird family really. It's weird which ones make it into humanoid myths and which ones are absolutely not part of the mythology. Now, make sure when you're holding your piece, everything that you're holding, you're paying attention that you're not smudging anything out of shape. Sorry about the fireworks in the background. People can't leave it alone, can they?
Mary Hedgehog asks, what kind of temperament are goats?
Goats, it depends on the goat. They can be really sweet. They can be little cuddle bugs. But you get the sweetest temperament from a goat when you don't allow it to feed from its mum. You take it off the mum and you bottle feed it. They call them bottle babies. Now, it sounds mean, but goat females often suffer with things like mastitis, and if they've got several kids especially, they have a hard time of feeding, and they're not losing their babies. What they tend to do is they separate them, the young, into a pen next to the mum. They call to each other for about a day, and then they both get on and play with the other babies, and the mum gets on going and being a goat. Her milk dries up, so she's at less risk of infections and stuff, and the farmer comes and feeds the goat formula, and that means they then associate humans with food and with their nurture, and throughout the rest of their life they're very, very sociable and friendly and kind to people. If they've been raised by goats, they'll be nice enough, but they won't bond with you like a bottle baby would. And especially some of the males can be very mean. I mean, serious little head butters, and they've got very sharp horns. They go up on their hind legs and then headbutt right into you. It's not great, and farmers find it cute. They're, especially people with hobby farms, they're like play with this. There's a guy I follow called I'm a Survivor Sanctuary, and Lester, the guy who runs it, puts on a American football helmet, and him and his goat headbutt for each other. It's play. They both enjoy it. Ringo, he can be really mean. They love him, but he can be quite mean both to the other goats and to the humans. So yeah, if you've got goat babies, you want to make sure that you do have them bottle fed. You end up with a much more amiable goat. But the thing that they don't warn you about with goats is they're into everything. They want to eat everything. Your tractor wires, so they'll get under your tractor and pull out the wires. They'll jump up on your car with their little hooves and scratch all your paintwork. They're good at eating down all the grass and keeping your garden weed free. But yeah, they're amazing climbers. Absolutely amazing climbers. So this back is getting there. We've got the scapula. We've got the big muscle in the back there. I might try and pinch that waist a little thinner there. Move these down a little bit more. So that's the good thing. Once you've allocated the clay, you can move it around and change its position. So we're now going into the chest. And the worry you've got with the chest is you do not want to smudge the back. Okay, so I'm just making sure those back muscles are on the back and he's not looking like a hunchback from the front, like so. Squidge it all in. This wobbling is going to annoy me by the time we get done with it. I've still got to blend in those scapulas a little more, but I can take hours just blending in and fiddling like that, and I will bore you all to tears, I'm sure of it. So chest, the main bits that we're building up on that is around the pecs and that little central six pack. So like this. So we don't need a huge amount of clay for that. Let's move you to one side. I know you can't see our muscle guy, but he keeps catching my arm. Right, so what I'm going to do, let's have a look, they're too big. So, about that much. Not the biggest amount of clay for those pecs. Like so. Now, what I'm more inclined to do is actually bake it just as the abdomen and base, and then add the arms and build up afterwards, because the worry you've got is that you're going to smudge work you've already got gone done. So that's the kind of shape we're looking for those pectorials. So let's do that with the other bit. So you're pushing down, you're just going to smooth those sides out a little bit so that they make a gentle slope, and then you're going to use your thumb to do a slight curve, although that's got to be that direction. There we go. Like that, because you want them to mirror each other or it looks weird. There we are. Right, now we can put them on. Like so. And you want to have quite a flat front to it, or they'll end up looking like boobs. So, the other way you can smooth that chest in a bit more, let's just curve it around like that, because you're going to have the arch of the six-pack there. That's why I'm making sure there is that arching at the bottom, like that. Right. The other option, if you don't have ball tools, let's find it. Nope. It's the problem when you've got too many tools. But I use them all. That's the thing. It would be the one that I can't find that I want to talk to you about. That'll do. Right, anything with a slight curve to it and a flat end, you can just drag down the side of what you're smoothing in like that and blend that way. You see what I mean? It can be in some instances better than using a ball tool, but it's hard to get into smaller gaps with it because you need to lay it pretty flat, like so. But I find these better. That's what. And if you're wondering where I get them from, all my tools, eBay, Amazon, have a look around. They're pretty inexpensive. I can't tell you exactly. I know I'm off camera. Let's go back on camera. Sorry. What I normally do is I push the base against my chest, and then it's sat directly under my eyes so I can see what I'm doing, which is harder to do on camera. But here we go, smoothing it all in. And yeah, I was thinking, well, I was talking with Fairy Hedgehog, who is my mother-in-law, and we were saying that we know that goats can do some pretty amazing climbing, and they really can. They can, especially if you look up things like mountain goats, the hoof has quite a powerful and sharp front edge, and it works like a chisel, and they literally ram it into gaps between rocks. So there is video of them. It looks like they're running up sheer cliff, and they've actually been filmed running upside down over overhangs. It's terrifying to watch. Look up mountain goat on YouTube. And what's worse is they let their babies do it as well. It's craziness. It's terrifying. So we've got a chest in there like that. Now again, a lot of these little cracks I'm going to come in later and smooth, because I'm going to be here forever just smoothing out little cracks. But I want to change the angle. If you can see, it's quite a steep side between the pec and the chest. But when I'm pushing this down, watch what's going on the back. Don't just push like that, and with your hand you'll literally smudge those scapulars straight into the back, and you might as well have not bothered with that work. So hold from the arms or the neck or that little head point. That's where you should be anchoring, not where you have just put all that work in on the back. Now that looks about right. I know the shoulders need to come in, and we need to put in the shoulder blades up the top, but I'm going to do that after it's first baking. What I want is to do that 6-pack. So what I find is easiest is doing the whole muscle group as one, and then portioning it out with the ball tool. So what I mean by that is this. Too much clay. Let's take that off. And all I'm looking for is the amount of extra clay I'm going to be adding to that space. Making sure that it's the right kind of amount. Yeah, that'll do. Right. Now I could roll it into a ball and then shape it into the shape that I want, but I'm going to show you don't even have to do that. So we've got a semicircle slice, but it's too wide, so I'm just using the glass to hold it and my fingers to push it into shape like so. And I'm going to want to point down at that bottom part. So what I'm doing is I'm using my thumb and finger to hold it so that it's not just spreading out, and then pushing on the side, and you get that almost teardrop kind of shape that you want for that set of muscles, like so. Make sure it's the right kind of size, which it is. And let's hold it up, see what I mean? And I'm just pushing it in place. And again, I'm holding at the hips. So these two fingers are there. And then I'm using my thumb to go round, because you don't want to be smudging up all that back. So once you've joined that in, go round like that, then what you can do is I'm going to use the side of my palette knife. I will join it all in, but I think this is going to be me for about another hour smoothing in. So I'll just show you what I'm going to do. You want to draw a line down the middle, making sure both sides are symmetrical. So that would be both the pecs and this big teardrop needs to be symmetrical on the middle line. Does that make sense? So like that. There we go. Right, dividing line. Like that. Then I like this tool for that because it's got quite a thick side, but anything that's got a bit of a thick flat edge to it, you can come in and bring that line into more thickness. And you want to, instead of it being such a straight down line, you're going to just round the edges off of it, like so. So we got that. Yeah. Then we can divide that into 6. The top one is slightly bigger. I'm going to use my palette knife because it's a slight curve, like that. And then down there, I'm going to probably make mine an 8-pack. It's possible, like that. So sectioned out. Then you can come in with your ball tool and start to make that look more like a muscle group. So it'll look all a little bit better once I've actually got it all blended in. So like that. Coming in with your ball tool and just going to bring out that muscle group a little more, like so. Because if you look at it, it's not got any pointy edges, so you've really got to come round and bring them into little potato shapes, basically. And smooth out any of those sort of dimply lines. But you can see it really does come together and look like a 6-pack very quickly. Looking odd to me because I haven't smoothed the outside in yet. Now we've got to decide where we're putting the belly button, which I think should go in the middle there. I'm going to get one of my smallest ball tools, which is probably that one, and put that in right on that line, second one down. Okay, oops, there. Now it looks too weird to me. I've got to smooth these edges in. I know it's boring, sorry. But once you've got them all smoothed in, you can bring that out slightly wider if you want. You can mess around with its positioning. But yeah, then you got your 6-pack in. I may end up taking that bottom one off when I put the hips and legs in. Probably will actually. But there we go. We've got a basic front. I'm going to smooth in all around the outside there. You can come in with these little sideline muscles, but it depends on how ripped you want your guy to be. I tend to not go there. I tend to just do the 6-pack pecs, then the 2 back muscles and the scapulars. So once I've got all that smoothed in and I've got it baked, then I can come in and start working on the arms and legs. But I'm going to leave it at this tonight, I think, because I think it's going to need a baking before I do the other bits. The reason why is if I start trying to add to them and these bits aren't baked, then what we've done so far can be smudged and squidged and all those bad things. So good start to it all, I think. Have a fiddle around with your piece at this stage. Play with it until you've got it looking how you want. I do advise go on to eBay or go to your local charity shops once our plague is over and look for old Cindy and Ken dolls and Action Mans, just so that you've got something where you can visually look at different muscle groups on an actual kind of human. Okay? Thank you all for joining me. I know this has been a bit of a technical one this week. Next week it should get a little easier once we get onto arms. Okay? Right. Have a really good week, guys. And I will see you next week with this looking more like what we should.